Ask yourself. You might need to unmute, but you have been you've been chosen.
Oh, okay. All right. Loud and clear?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, we spoke last time. It was just about is and ought. I wasn't really persuaded that you had found a way to resolve the problem. I also am not sure that we think of the problem in the same way, though, so I suspect it could be semantic. I had asked you to sum up your view, but then my mic cut out. So I don't know if you want to repeat it, or if you want me to... Well, maybe it would be good for you to repeat it.
Well, I guess I can just... And I appreciate you calling back. I ask you the question, is a debate an is or an ought?
I'm not really sure how to answer that.
Well, a rock is an is, not an ought, right?
Well, I think that we say that a proposition would be...
No, hang on. Sorry, we can't start by talking cross purposes, so you can reject my question, but please don't ignore it. Is a rock an is or an ought?
Well, I think the question's loaded. I don't think it's either. I think it's a noun. I think propositions
okay, does a rock exist?
Sorry, I'm not trying to avoid your question. If you want to talk about the proposition a rock exists, that would be an is statement.
No, does a rock, do rocks exist?
I think so.
What do you mean you think so? I don't understand. Sorry, what do you mean you think so? There's a whole field called geology. My father was a geologist. He studied rocks. What do you think, he was fantasizing?
No.
Okay, so do rocks exist?
I think so.
Okay, why don't you know?
I didn't say I don't know. I just think some of those terms like knowledge, I don't know, we'd have to unpack what we mean.
No, it's not unpacking. Does a rock exist?
I think so.
So you don't know?
It's going to depend how you use knowledge. That's a fraught philosophical concept. There's different notions of knowledge.
No, it's not. No, it's really not.
You don't think
they're a complex philosophical hang on, they're a complex physical concepts. But does a rock exist is not one of them.
You asked if I know that a rock exists. Knowledge is a complex philosophical concept.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did things exist before there was human consciousness?
I think so.
But you don't know.
I think we're going in a circle. What do you think I'm going to say to that?
Well, I think so is a statement of probability or possibility. It is not a statement of certainty.
But I've said the same thing a few times.
Let me ask you another question then. Do you think that I exist?
Okay, I'm happy to answer that, but I'm kind of worried you're going to ask me a lot of questions, and then we're not going to get to the initial objection that I was sort of bringing up the last time that I came on.
No, I'm trying to establish whether anything exists outside of your consciousness.
But
because if I'm a fantasy of your consciousness, I'm not sure how we can have a debate if you're kind of arguing with a dream or some sort of avatar in a matrix world or something like that. So I'm trying to understand if you accept that things exist outside of your consciousness.
Okay, we might have a bit of a fundamental disagreement because I think that's not really a fair approach, I guess. I want the initial thing that I came on to talk about.
Okay, so you don't know if rocks exist, but you think I'm being unfair. Do you think fairness is more complicated than rocks?
I think you're kind of going for cheap dunks. Like, would you be able to repeat what my initial criticism was, just to make it clear that you're actually engaging with it?
I'm sorry. So now you think that cheap dunks exist, but not rocks? Are you certain that it's cheap dunks, which is an evaluation of my, I guess, moral purpose in having the conversation? So you're certain that I'm doing cheap dunks, but you're not certain that I exist?
I don't think that I said anything about certainty, but I think that you're kind of going to burn out the clock on this and hang up on me.
No, I'm asking, this is basic philosophical questions. Because if you don't know that rocks exist, then you don't think that I exist. You're not certain that I exist. You're not certain that the microphone exists. You're not certain that your arm exists. That's a radical skepticism from which you can't build anything true.
If you want to talk about, so firstly, I want my initial thing addressed. I think this is not my initial thing. I also don't mind talking about knowledge. Like, if you want my view, I'm a contextualist. You know what contextualism is?
I feel free to describe it. I'm sure I may know it by another name, but
Yeah, which I'm not, sorry, just to be clear, I'm not trying to cheap dunk on you. I'm just trying to suggest I do have a view about knowledge. I have some idea, right? Yeah, so contextualism, basically, like if you read the SEP entry on it, for anyone who wants to read more, there's these kind of problems that we get with knowledge. Like people will want to say in different contexts that they know things that seem incompatible. Like if you ask someone, do you know what you had for breakfast? Or do you know that a rock exists? I think that most people will want to say, yes, I know what I had for breakfast. Yes, I know that rocks exist. But then if you ask something like, do you know that you're not a brain in a vat? A lot of people will say, well, I'm not sure. But if you know a rock exists, you know you're not a brain in a vat. And if you don't know whether you're a brain in a vat, then you're not sure whether a rock exists. So contextualism sort of comes in as a solution that says, okay, well, the problem here is that epistemic language is actually indexed to context, or at least could be indexed to context so as to make it make more sense. So the idea is epistemic context is some set of starting propositions, and to say you know something is to say that it's roughly that it's like validly deducible from the starting set under some relevant logic or something like that. So you might say
validly deducible from, you said, I didn't catch that, the start of something, or from validly deducible from.
So there is a bit of technical terminology there. So like the starting set, that's just the set of propositions that you're taking for granted in a given epistemic context. So you might have a mundane context, like the rock or the breakfast conversation with your grandma. And in that kind of context, you get a ton of stuff in the starting set. You get like the uniformity of causation. You get that like other minds exist, that the external world exists, that science is reliable, sense perception is reliable. So if you have all that, it's fairly easy to deduce that, a rock exists. But in a really skeptical context, maybe you're talking to your philosophy professor, they would look at you like you're kind of silly if they said, hey, do you know whether you're a brain in a vat? And you said, well, of course I'm not a brain in a vat. I can see I'm not a brain in a vat, because it's kind of implicit in that conversation that we're not taking sense perception for granted.
You wouldn't just say, I can see that I'm not a brain in a vat.
Right now I'm just explaining what contextualism is, because you asked my view.
Okay.
So do we share an understanding of what it is? It's basically a semantic for epistemic language, where we say for any kind of knowledge statement, like I know X or X is justified, we say that we interpret that with respect to a context, and it's going to be justified in a given context, right? So a statement might be justified in a mundane context and not justified in a skeptical context. So it's a sort of relativistic, which you might not like about it.
Well, don't tell me what I do and don't like.
It was just a guess.
I'm
not projecting on you.
I'm talking.
But you said something about me. I'm not accusing you of that.
Which you might like. Hang on.
Yeah, which you might. I didn't say you did.
Let me answer you.
I'm just diffusing it.
No, hang on.
But you're being unfair. I'm not poisoning the well. I'm just saying that might be your view. It also might not be. I'm not trying to ascribe it to you. You're free to correct me.
Oh, come on, man. Which you might not like is indicating that my response is based on some emotional preference, right?
No. You might have a view that's different, that is a reasonable view. I suspect you might not agree with that statement, but that's not to imply you might not agree because you're wrong or stupid. That's all I was correcting. You're free to go on. I just didn't want you to think I'm implying that.
You said, no, but you should own what you say.
I own.
Right? You didn't say you might have an argument against that. You said you might not like it.
Okay, well, I'm happy to correct the language. You might disagree with that. Would that be more fair?
Okay. Well, that's fair, yeah.
Okay, sure.
And it's not an accident that you put it the other way. Okay, so
it also wasn't intentionally negative. I wasn't trying to be a dick or unfair.
All right. I can't read your intentions. I can only read your language.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that if you accept sense data and you accept empirical evidence and you accept reason, then you can say that a rock exists.
I'm saying that...
But if you don't accept those things, then you can't.
I'm saying that on contextualism, a knowledge statement, an epistemic statement, is going to be relative to a context. So in a mundane context, you might know something like that. In a skeptical context, you might not.
Now, do you think that mundane is a negative word or a neutral word or a positive word?
Neutral. It's just a matter of what kind of context we're in. It's fine to be in a mundane context when you're talking to everyday people, or even sometimes philosophically. But sometimes we want to, sometimes we're in a skeptical context. I'm not shitting on one context or the other, though.
I mean, generally, people would say it's a negative word. I'm general.
I'm also happy to change that word. Just to be clear.
Okay. There seems to be a lot of almost like language program. I'm not saying it's coming from you. I'm just saying that there seems to be a lot of, like, if somebody were to say,
Yeah.
"What do you think of this movie?" and somebody were to say, "Oh, I thought it was pretty mundane," that would be a criticism, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just want to say a general thing about our conversation, which is I think that I might use language in a way that makes you think that I'm saying something negative when that's not my intention. So if you think that I'm implying something, or maybe it's I don't know. I'm happy to correct and change language to clarify any of that, because I'm really not trying to unfairly ascribe views to you or to like cast shade on your position or anything like that. It's just the way I say things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you are a radical skeptic, or let's say a foundational skeptic, because to me, skepticism is a part of the bell curve. It's the Aristotelian mean. You don't want to take everything at face value. Neither do you want to be skeptical of everything. I view that as the Aristotelian, because skepticism is supposed to guide you towards the truth. And if you just believe everything, I'm not saying you, but if
Yeah.
a person named Bob, let's say, if Bob just believes everything that he's told, then he can't get to the truth. However, if Bob doesn't believe anything that happens to him or comes in through the evidence of the senses, then Bob also cannot get to the truth. Now, of course, the purpose of philosophy is the study of wisdom. And so philosophy needs to establish truth, because if you don't have the truth, you can't possibly be wise. If there's no such thing as truth, then there cannot be any such thing as wisdom. Would you agree with those broad strokes?
I'm not entirely sure. In all honesty, I would need to think about it. And I'm happy for you to continue. I'm not trying to steal the reins here, but I just want to say one.
Hang on, but you've been studying this for a long time. Do you believe that truth is possible to achieve for the human mind, which would be an accurate statement of things as they are outside of consciousness? Like if I point at an oak tree and I say that's an oak tree, and let's say it is an oak tree, that would be a true statement. That's an oak tree. Do you believe that the human mind is capable of achieving truth?
I think that it's. I don't. You might not like my answer, which is not to imply anything about you.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. We already went through this, bro. That is an insulting statement, so please avoid it.
What you might disagree? How do you want me to phrase it?
Well, just don't talk about what I like and I don't like.
Okay. Well, I'm not. Okay. I'm
Because
not trying to frustrate you.
philosophy is not about what I like or I don't like.
Okay. You might not agree. I'm still triggered
just
by the
give me your
start of
answer.
the.
Don't talk about what I may or may not. Just give me your answer. You don't need to keep referencing my state of mind or feelings in order to provide an answer, right?
I'm triggered.
Okay, well, deal with your triggers, and let's just have the answer. Do you believe that the mind is capable of achieving truth?
I feel like I want to say what I actually care about, and if I can't, I don't know that I want to continue. Like, I want to talk about what I look. There's two things, and I'm happy to have you continue with the truth line after if you want to. I feel like I'm being boxed in a way where I can't express what I actually think. Two things. At the start of the conversation, you were asking me asking me things about what I think, as if there's very obvious answers, and I was a bit cagey about answering. But I hope you understand now that that's because I think there's nuance to these concepts like knowledge or truth, and I think that the answer to something like that is probably going to depend on how we mean those terms, and we'd have to hash that out. So that's one thing. I just want to flag that. And the other thing is that I don't really think that you've summarized or in any way actually dealt with my initial problem on the is-ought gap. And I want to get around to that rather than what I kind of worry is going to happen, which is I think we're going to go down this road where I don't know if it's going to be about knowledge or what, but I think you're going to find somewhere where you disagree and then call me silly and then never talk about the is-ought thing, which is like I almost just want to reset to that topic.
Have I called you silly?
No, I'm making a prediction about what will happen. I could be wrong.
So that's also kind of insulting. Like you just can't stop it, right? You have this compulsion to be insulting.
Because do you think I might believe what I'm saying?
I would just hang on. I would disagree with your argument. I would try and point out counter arguments. I would try and reason from first principles with reference to reason and evidence. But I have not called you silly. I would not call you silly. So saying that my response would be to call you silly is insulting.
I didn't say it would be. I said I sort of have a fear that it's going to go in that direction and that we're not going to get to the topic that I originally came for. Do you think I'm being dishonest?
I think that you don't want to answer questions. No, because you asked me about the is-ought dichotomy, and I said, is a debate an is or an ought? And we couldn't get to that one, so then I wanted to go to something more basic, which is I need to define what is an is so that we can differentiate it from an ought. So I said, does a rock exist? And we couldn't get there. I couldn't get a straight answer from you or a clear answer on whether you think a rock exists. And then I said, do you think that things existed before human consciousness came along? Which is a statement of science, right? Science has decisively proven that things existed before human consciousness came along. We just look at carbon dating or the fact that life evolved over the last 4 billion years. The universe is 15 billion or so years old. So I'm just wondering if you accept science and reason and evidence, because if you don't accept science, reason, and evidence, I don't know how we can have a debate.
So you said I don't want to answer questions, and I would actually kind of grant that. I don't, but it's not that I, in principle, have an objection to answering questions. And I do actually think that with the rock thing, I clarified what I meant with contextualism, and that should kind of indicate what my answer is, and I'm happy to go over that. But the reason I don't is because I really want to talk about the original topic. I don't think that you know what my concern is with the is-ought thing, and I just want you to understand what my concern is and then respond to my concern.
Yeah, but why would I have a conversation with someone who doesn't even know that things existed before human consciousness came along?
That's fair. Now, to be fair, if you just said, I don't want to address your concern for whatever reason, that would be okay, actually.
No. See, again, you're going back to some weird emotional thing. It's not that I don't want to, it's impossible.
Okay, that's confusing to me. But let's look. I just want to reset, and do you understand what my initial objection is, or my concern with the is-ought gap?
Do you mean from the last conversation?
Yes, yeah.
No, I don't have any memory of what your general issue was. I have like 1,000 conversations a month, it feels like. So I don't have any memory of the conversation we had. I don't know, when was it? When did we last chat?
I don't know, maybe like a month ago. Basically,
yeah, so no.
This is it, though. And I'm happy to address your concerns around knowledge and stuff. I just am worried that we won't get to it, and I want to talk about the main thing before. Again, I'm not trying to project onto you. I do have. Look, I'm not gonna go on. The initial problem that I came for is just you think that you have resolved this problem, and I think maybe you have under some framing of that problem, but the way that I think about the problem, and that you'll see it written about standardly in philosophy, like if you read the SEP entry, for instance, on Hume's moral philosophy, where it came from.
Yeah, I've done a whole show on David Hume, so yeah, I get it.
I wasn't implying you don't know about Hume, but I don't see how
you said if you read or if you understand. So
sorry, to be clear, the you there isn't necessarily direct at you. It's just if one reads. Is that better?
Did his mic go out again?
No. I can see my thing popping off. Can others hear me right now?
Hello.
Test.
What a shame.
Test?
I think
Hello?
we've lost him. Okay, so
I see my speaker thing going off. Can others hear me?
Debate because you can't debate with people who don't accept that there's objective truth.
Hello?
You can't debate with people who are going to deny the evidence of the senses because you have to debate using the evidence of...
Hello? Test. Oh, am I coming through? Test. Test. Hello? Test? What the fuck? Oh. Test, hello? Is it working now? What in the fuck is happening with this? Hello? What the fuck? Did I get blocked? Like, why is it being so slow like this? What is happening? Fuck this fucking platform, dude. Holy shit. Oh, man. Okay, well, I guess I'll just explain my view and upload this. So, I mean, I find this whole thing frustrating. It's actually my internet. I seem to have lost Discord even. Where is my net? Okay, well, that's unfortunate. Anyway, I'll explain my view, firstly, about this whole conversation. So it's very difficult to talk to Stefan. I want to talk about the objection that I came to talk about, and it feels like he wants to sort of drill into, I don't know if it's like epistemology or something like that. And I worry that we're not going to get to the original objection. So the original objection that I actually came to talk about, which, by the way, he told me to follow up with him on email, and I have followed up twice, and he's never responded to that, so I don't know what's going on there. But the original objection is really just this. Like, he says that he has crossed the is-ought gap, and I don't think that he's thinking of the is-ought gap in the kind of way that philosophers are generally thinking about it. Like, if we look at, here's the SEP article on Hume's moral philosophy, and we look up things like infer, like you see how we're getting lots of infer in here, is and ought, the is and ought section, infer, or like, premise, right? Let's look for that word. Where's the is ought section? Is and ought, premise, right? The kind of thing that is being talked about is roughly whether you can validly deduce an ought statement from a set of purely is premises. And that's the thing that I haven't seen Stefan do, and that I doubt he can do. Now, I would be happy to either see him do that, or for us to just agree that he's addressing some other sense of the problem. And I think I have an old video with Alex Malpass as a PhD in philosophy where we go over this kind of aspect of his view. But yeah, that's really just the issue right there. I don't think that he has in any way solved this problem in the sense that philosophers are typically talking about it, which again is something like deriving an ought statement from purely is statements under some formal system, like propositional logic, first order logic, and that challenge is kind of open for him. So if he sees this, I'm happy to have a proper conversation about this. Typically, my internet is fine. Don't really know what's happening there. Can't say that I've had this happen on any platform other than X. I really don't know what's going on here. But yeah, I'd be happy to hash that out with him at the end. Again, the problem is just, can he give me a deductively valid argument with purely is premises and an ought conclusion? And there's some cheeky ways to do that, like by explosion, but obviously that's not what's being talked about.
All right, H, R. I'm trying to go with people who haven't come before. And I do find it kind of interesting coincidence that the fellow who calls in to criticize about the is-ought stuff when the always seems to have mysterious microphone failures at the moment that the debate is not going his way. It's very interesting. I'm not sure that there's much honesty there either. But H, R, what is on your mind, my friend?